Hey, what's up everybody? It's Kellen here from Start Your Systems, and welcome to another video in MX vs. ATV All Out. Today I'm going to be playing some quads, dude. What the heck? Quads? On this channel? Really? Nah, I'm kidding. We're going to be showing off a little bit of the OEM quads today. They were released 2 weeks ago now as part of some bundle packages, so it's all the OEMs except Husky, and it's just the 450 quads. And I'm going to just stick to the trusty Yamaha quad. But yeah, so Yamaha, Suzuki, KTM, Kawasaki, and Honda. No Husqvarna, as I said. But I've been doing the quad series. So I'm going to continue on with that today. Go to events. And ATV Nationals. Still have quite a few left to complete. I don't know if I'll do all of them today. But at least I'll talk you guys through some of these quad physics, because I haven't even yet. Well, I played on the quads for a little bit when I first bought the game, and we did that day one live stream. But I mean, unless you sat through 4 hours of that, you probably didn't see me play it much. So this is really kind of a true indication of what they're like. And honestly speaking, I actually like the quad physics in this game. Like, they kind of feel. I mean, honestly speaking here, I've only ever ridden a quad once, and it wasn't on like a racetrack, so I can't speak to how good a quad feels physically on a racetrack. But I definitely feel like more so than the dirt bikes in this game, the quads are like heavier. You actually have to kind of like lean into the corners to get it to turn the right way. They're very momentum sensitive. Like, you kind of have to work on carrying your speed, and because you can't just lay into a corner as easily as you can on a dirt bike in this game, it kind of has a little bit more of like a good fun challenge to it. Makes it feel a little bit more motocrossy. My biggest pet peeve so far with this game is that you can pretty much go fairly wide open around the track on a dirt bike. There's not much technique involved, I would say. Not that it's completely technique-less, but you know, it's very arcadey feeling on a dirt bike. In this, you know, quad nationals that I've done so far, it does feel like you're actually having to try pretty hard to get the quad to do what you want it to do. It's still not terribly hard, but it's fun. It's a good little challenge. And I know that a lot of our fans out there are probably huge dirt bike motocross fans, but I like quads. I'm sure that's going to be pulled out as a soundbite at some point. But honestly, like, dudes that rip quads and are fast on them and race the ATV Nationals are gnarly. Like, I wouldn't do it. Quads kind of freak me out a little bit. Not because they're like too fast or anything, but my biggest fear of a quad is every time I've ever seen someone crash a quad in real life, the thing chases you. You know, a dirt bike, it doesn't have four wheels to plant on and can continue forward. It kind of, you know, if you cartwheel a dirt bike, it's generally speaking going to go some different direction unless you go perfectly end over end forwards, and then sometimes the bike can chase you. And I've definitely seen guys get, you know, toppled over by their own motorcycle after they go over the bars. But a quad, it seems like whichever direction you crash a quad, at some point it's going to either end up back on its wheels, or it's just going to roll towards you anyway. Like, like the joke among the motocross community is it's a couch that tackles you. And, you know, I think that in some sense that's a fair assessment of it, because most quad crashes I've seen have been really gnarly, where the guy or gal yard sales, and then the quad tackles them, and, you know, another 10-15 feet down the track after they've almost stopped rolling. So that's like my biggest fear of quads. Otherwise, I think they're gnarly and like kind of awesome that guys are able to do what they're able to do on a quad, because I know I certainly couldn't. You know, as a big motocross fan myself, I'm always amazed when I go see real life pros do what they can do on a dirt bike. And honestly, I'm the exact same way with, you know, quad pros and seeing what they're able to do, because, like I said, quads are just a completely different animal, and it's amazing that they can do some of the things that they can do. So I'm not going to pick on quad guys today. I don't know if people expect that or not, because of how the motocross community generally reacts to quads. But I think quad dudes are gnarly. So I'm gonna lay off him. But boy, oh boy, racing these quads in this game, good throwback to some ATV Off-Road Fury days. I've never been the biggest fan of the quads in any of the MXers ATV games. Yeah, I just can't think of a game that I've really generally enjoyed playing the quads. Like, I'd say the one that I probably played on a quad the most of the MXers ATV series was Reflex. And I felt like that was like kind of by default, like it, you know, forced you to do some of the quad championships to get further in the career, which is kind of the same thing here. I could easily have skipped the quad series and just done the 450 Dirt Bike Nationals, but I want to show off the quads a little bit because, you know, they came out with the OEM pack, which includes the quads, so part of that's showing that off, but also just to talk about the physics of the game a little bit. You may have noticed that there still is that floaty feeling or floaty look of the quads that you get on the dirt bikes in this game, which I'm neither here nor there for, but you can get a lot of stuff done in the air, even on the quads. You can still whip the quads kind of a little too easily, in my opinion. It depends on what you want to feel is realistic versus just like fun and, you know, floaty game to play. I'm obviously more of the belief that these games should err a little bit more on the realistic side, but I can understand from a casual fan standpoint that if they go and whip a dirt bike in this game, they might pick it up and also want to whip a quad. So I get that, you know, there's reasons that you're able to do it, but in real life, I've only ever seen, you know, 2 or 3 guys that can legitimately and very, you know, well done do a whip on a quad. They're, you know, they're very heavy machines comparatively to a dirt bike, and you know, they kind of have, like a dirt bike, you can kind of use a lot of your lower body to work the bike. I feel like with a quad, you have to use a lot of like the whole body motion to be able to get a whip off, because you have to get, you know, kind of your whole weight on one side or the other to even get the quad to lean over. I mean, again, this is all speculation because I haven't ridden a quad on a, you know, professional level or even tried to whip one, but because of it being heavier and kind of having a little bit of a lower center of gravity, I would imagine, than a dirt bike, it just seems like it's a lot harder to get to move, and so that's why I'd imagine it's tough to whip a quad, and why I don't think it should be as easy to whip it in this game. But again, I understand it from an arcade standpoint. I talked a little bit about the cornering. Like I said, they're very momentum sensitive. You can come to a pretty good stop in a corner and use the clutch to get where you want to go. So that's kind of cool. Like, you can kind of just stop and then clutch out, and it gets going pretty well again. But ideally, you know, you're trying to carry your speed well through the corner, which is, it's the way it's supposed to be. I wish the dirt bikes reacted a little bit more like that in this game instead of just wide open fest around the track. Leaning in corners definitely helps. You know, leaning off the right or left side of the quad helps. If you kind of stay stationary, it's really tough to turn. Like, that's just me turning with just the stick, and you can see it was kind of pushing the front end all the way through the corner. So you definitely have to use the leaning a bit of the rider to help out, whether you're trying to kind of weight the outside of the quad to get some traction, or if you want to make a tighter turn and you have to kind of swivel your butt over to either side of the quad as it looks from behind. But actually, let me do a little bit of onboard action. They fixed the onboard camera in this game too, so it's supposed to be a little bit more reactive to where the actual handlebars and everything are. I noticed some people had mentioned that it looks a little bit more realistic in that sense, because before you almost didn't notice anything that was going on because your head stayed pretty stationary and the bike or quad moved under you in any sort of direction. This one, I don't know, it still feels a little kind of herky-jerky here and there, but I feel like it's pretty good. These guys have worn down the left side of the track right here. Come through the corner, clutch out, no problem. I've also gone back to automatic shifting just for the time being. Make it a little bit easier. The manual shifting, I know that they fixed a couple updates with it so that it actually does work now, because before it would just kind of, sometimes you would be manually shifting, other times it would just automatically shift, no problem. I believe with patch 1.06, which they have now released, they've kind of worked out the kinks with manual shifting. I haven't super tested it, so I can't attest to it, but that's just what was part of the release notes for the patch. So definitely can try that out for yourself if you've been concerned with manual shifting. And I'm also playing this 450 Quad Nationals on hard, which is one tier below all time or whatever it is. That's the toughest grouping. So I don't know if I'm quite 36 seconds better than, you know, the hard players in this game or whatever. Like, I feel like if I played on all time, they would definitely be way, way, way more competitive. I wish you could change that mid-series, but again, whatever. Can't change everything, right? Just kind of going through the right side of the list here, because I also am going to do the 450 Motocross Nationals, and I'm actually planning on doing those on the two-stroke OEM 250 two-strokes that came out, which obviously there's the Yamaha, the Husky, and the KTM that came out with the two-strokes. So I'm probably going to do that in the next video. But as for the ATV Nationals, I'm going to do the kind of the right side of the little tree of the 450 Nationals. Continue on with career mode as it is. But again, I don't know. I'm a fan of the quads in this game. I think that they have a better feel than the bikes. The bike physics in the air are really cool. Not the biggest fan of the bike physics on the ground, to be honest with you, as I've grown more accustomed to the game. You know, it's very arcadey, and that's fine. Like, you know, for the casual player to pick it up and have an easier time to learn it, it has to kind of be that way, I think, in a sense. But I also wish that there was a little bit more realism added, and I'm sure that a slew of you that comment on this video are going to be like, oh, well, if you tune the bike this way and do this with the brakes, and then you get the stock this and you get the modded this, that you can make it feel more realistic. And like, sure, that's great, but I don't feel like you should have to do that much work just to make it feel a little bit more realistic in the game. So that's my only hitting point so far with the dirt bikes. The quads, though, like I said, on the ground, they feel pretty good. I feel maybe, and this might be a case of just the tracks not being like kind of the coolest tracks, but I feel like the quads soak up a little bit too much of the rough and the chop. Like, there's some pretty big bumps that the quads are just like, yeah, I got this, bro. And I don't know if that's quite true in real life. Again, this is a lot of speculation, so you can take my musings or opinions on this with a grain of salt. But I don't know, like, every time I've seen a person ride a quad in real life, pro or just, you know, regular track day, you know, they come through a corner and they're getting kind of all bucked around because the quad will hook up here and there, and like you're trying to get the rear end to slide in some corners and hook up in others. And I just feel like in this game it just kind of floats on the ground a little too easy, too easy over the bumps. But again, like, I'm not saying it's terrible. I think that the ground physics are a little bit better than what the dirt bikes are able to do in this game. And overall, I like the way it feels. Like, if they, you know, came out with maybe a little bit better tracks. Not to say that these tracks are terrible, but the thing I don't like about these national tracks is that they're hugely wide, and that's neither here nor there. But I mean, like, they're so turny. Like, there's not any like long straights with like good flowy tabletops or, you know, hills or whatever. And then every section that is like a flat section, or even a lot of these like flat corners, they just have to have all these like weird kind of bumps mixed in with them. I wish it was kind of set up more like a real life national where the track was tilled nice and then you got to rip it up how you chose. Maybe they will do that at some point. But it kind of makes me like think back to Reflex a little bit, and like, I wasn't the biggest fan of tracks like Pine Top or can't think of another example right now, but I really like tracks like Armadillo Flats, and I don't know, just the ones that looked a little bit more like prepped, like a national. Like, this one looks like it was just someone decided to put banners around a certain area on the beach and make a track out of it. So I don't know. I'm being super nitpicky. I promise I'm not this negative. I know some people comment occasionally and let me know how negative I am, and, you know, to each their own. I don't feel like I'm a negative person, but if you feel that way, I can understand, because sometimes I am pretty aggressive with my comments on videos. My favorite, and this has been happening a lot lately, is when I say something in an old video and I say something at the very beginning of an old video, but then later on I correct myself or I learn something that makes me realize what I said at the beginning of the video was wrong. Well, I've had like a slew of videos recently on the channel that have sort of taken off randomly. So like they only had maybe 5,000 to 10,000 views before, but now they've taken off into like the 50,000, 60,000 range. And they're like 2 years old, and I don't even remember what I said in them, but then I just get random comments of people saying like, hey, you're an idiot, you said this, and it's actually this. And it's like, okay, thank you. I know someone has already corrected me 13 times before you if you looked in the other comments. But then there's a lot of times that I do actually correct myself later in the video and like, you know, apologize because I messed up. But still, they didn't listen far enough. I don't know. I guess that's YouTube. What are you gonna do? Can't appease everybody. You make a video, some people watch 3 minutes of it, some people watch all 15 minutes of it, or whichever, however long the video is, I don't know. I think this might be the last race, looking at the video length, but just showing off these quads today. Showing off the Yamaha in particular, because, I don't know, I think it looks pretty cool. The stock version of the Yamaha in this game, it comes with these like black and green graphics, and all the other OEMs are pretty much like stock to what the dirt bike OEMs look like. The Honda's pretty red, has like a few little graphics on it. The KTM is all orange. The Suzuki it's actually kind of like a little bit of a throwback looking Suzuki, thinking of it in a dirt bike term, because a lot of the crossbars and the A-arms and stuff like that are blue. And then the actual plastics are yellow, which is very typical of like mid to, well, just like 90s Suzukis. It's like 90s Suzukis in a nutshell, and some 80s too. And then the Kawasaki is all green plastics. I think it comes with, you know, standard with a black frame and then like silver A-arms. But then the Yamaha is the outlier. It has like black plastics with like green, you know, little decals on it, and that stuff you can't change. So that stuff I didn't really talk through at the beginning, but you can't really change the decals on it. There's only 2 of the 5 quads I think you can get either the SSI decals or the Moto Option decals on. The Yamaha is not one. I really want to say it's the Cowie and the Honda you can change, but I'm not going to swear to that. Otherwise, you can change all of the like components of it. You can change the sprocket color and the brake disc color. You can change the A-arm color and change the A-arms themselves. You can change the bumpers. You can change the Nerf bars, which are the foot pegs on either side of the quad. And you can change the colors of those too. You can change the color of the frame, I believe, as well. So there's a lot of cool options. The only thing I would ask is, you know, maybe in the future they come out with a little bit more graphical options to the quads. Just to make it a little bit more aesthetically nice. And then I chose to use Fly Gear today because Fly Gear dominates quad racing. There's a lot of pro athletes that wear Fly Gear that are quad racers. And also it's pretty common amongst the racers, I think, that they all use Fly Gear. I'll do one more race. Why not? Get as close as I can to actually finishing this. Coconut Beach, another beach race. Trying to think what else I can tell you about the quads that maybe you are going to ask a question about. Talked a little bit about the air physics. They are still pretty easily to flip. I love how free feeling the air physics are in this game, but I do wish that you actually had to do something a little bit more realistic to like initiate a backflip or a front flip other than be in the middle of a jump and then decide, oh, I'm gonna backflip here. Because like you can kind of do that. Like I can jump and then be like, oh, I'm gonna backflip midway through it, and I didn't make it all the way around there, obviously, but you get the gist. Like in real life, if you're gonna flip a quad or flip a dirt bike or flip a snowmobile or flip a trophy truck, you kind of have to do the right maneuvers on the takeoff of the jump to actually get it to work. Like you have to, you know, kind of stay a little bit lean forward. I'm talking about a dirt bike here. Never flipped a quad, never flipped a dirt bike. I've tried to flip a BMX bike before, and that didn't end well. But you kind of stay a little bit forward, and then as you get to the ramp, you use the throttle and then like kind of pop off the back of the bike. It's very easy to kind of look at it and eyeball it when it's done in slow motion. But in this game, like, I just feel like it's a little bit too free, where you can just right in the middle of the air decide, I'm gonna flip the quad. Sounds good to me. So I wish there was a little bit more of that, where, you know, you had to kind of do certain things right in order to do something in the air. So again, like halfway through deciding, oh, let's backflip, and it's pretty easy to accomplish. Suspension works great. I don't even have the quad even kind of upgraded. It's mostly stock stuff on there, stock exhaust, stock suspension, no engine upgrades on it yet. All that stuff you can upgrade and change, which I didn't mention in customization before, but you can do that. And yet these still feel pretty quick. They're pretty evenly attributed across the board. That's a cool little whip. You know, you get the little attributes that show like acceleration, top speed, suspension, forget the other categories. The quads come stock about like a 5 in all the category, 5 out of 10. And you can upgrade each to somewhere in about the 7.5, 8 range for some. Some stay in the 6s, some stay in the 5s. But it just kind of depends on what you put on the quad. But even still, like I said, mostly stock. I think I have top speed somewhere in the 6.2, 6.3 range. Everything else is in the 5s, and it still feels great. Like suspension-wise, acceleration's good. I have the Rainbow Blitz start on it, which helps with hole shots. But other than that, no performance upgrades other than I bought disc brakes for it. So like the $900 disc brakes that, or 900 Moto Credits disc brakes that come with it. And yeah, that's pretty much quads in a nutshell in this game. I do plan on doing more at some point. Maybe a little bit of multiplayer quad action. Get together with some fans at some point. It's been a whirlwind of a couple weeks for me. None of which I really need to divulge into, because most of the people watching this video are like, who the hell cares what's going on in your life? But I do plan on kicking content back up a little bit in the next couple weeks. I am getting married in 8 days, so I'll like kind of disappear, but you'll still see pre-recorded stuff coming out, so expect that. And that's about it in a nutshell. So I'm gonna finish up this race. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Be sure to check out the quad DLC. I think you can purchase them all individual. I think they're $2.99 each, thinking about it. But I got mine in like bundle packs. So I got the 2 strokes, and well, you could get the 4 strokes and all that stuff in a bundle pack. And I think those are like 12, 13 bucks, depending on how many bikes are actually in the pack. So you can check that out. Steam Store, Xbox Marketplace, PS Store, and try out the quads for yourself. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys did, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And I'll see you guys in the next one. So long for now.